That's
all the cool
theory.
stuff, right?
Yeah, people say, well, tell me how to win. Well, it's all set up statistically. So about 70% is paid out in prizes. So if you bet $100, you're only going to win $70. Now, if you get lucky, you're going to win more. And the worst odds are the big lotto jackpots because it's designed to take the majority. You only get 50% payout. 50% of the money is put right back into prizes to get the jackpot really big. And some people like to dream like that. But if you want to win, I tell everybody go in and take the money you have. You got a $20 bill, divide it by 10, and that's the amount you should be spending on a single lottery ticket.
Hello, everyone. Dr. Jim Hoven here, your host of the Difference Makers podcast, and it is my absolute joy, treat, and pleasure to share another episode with you today. And today I have a really cool guest. You guys are going to love him. He's got a story that is not only a story about greed and money and mistakes and all these kinds of things that you might see on TV, but then he's got another story of beauty and heartfelt giving back. And we're going to weave all this together today, and you are going to be inspired so that, like him, you're going to make a difference following this show. So without me hiding our mystery guest anymore, I want to proudly introduce Mr. Terry Rich to the show. Terry, thank you so much for joining us here on the Difference Makers show.
Thanks, Jim. Pleasure being here.
All right, man, let's jump into this. I got to say, when I was looking through, Alexis did a fabulous job of making sure we connected and were able to talk about this because I was so fascinated when you hooked me when you had the thing called the $80 million gamble and then the little subtitle. I'm like, what? I got to learn more. So I would love for you to just kind of share a little bit of background about you and then go into what the definition of an $80 million gamble is.
Absolutely. Well, let's start by saying it was an $80 billion to make
Oh, sorry,
it just
80 billion. I didn't count
sexy.
the zeros right.
Yeah, we had to add a few zeros. But basically, I grew up on the farm. We didn't have a lot of money. You know how it goes. Went to school, going to be a math major. Thought I'd be a professor, a high school teacher. And somebody said, you can go over here and talk and make a living. So I got involved in cable television right out of college. And this is when the Ted Turners and in 20 of those 20 years that I worked there, it was much like a Google where every day was an adventure. Every day was exciting. It was so entrepreneurial, and the culture that I learned in that was so helpful over all of the years. And the honesty that I learned from the leaders of that company who always said, hey, if you're going to do a deal, do a good one because I want to be able to sleep at night. I'll never forget the boss saying that one time. And lo and behold, the cable television took off. I helped develop the MTVs and the HBOs, all of those. We were part of that whole huge deal where people would say, I'll never pay more than $6 for extra cable TV channels, like what we're paying today. But in that, I had a failure. And it started with, I woke up one time because I was doing on-camera television and I realized I didn't have a 5 o'clock shadow. So I thought, well, I'll write Gillette and tell them how much I love their razor. So I sat down at these things we used to call typewriters and sent them a letter thinking I'd get on national television. And it motivated me like much. If you would like to win the lottery, what would I do if I really won? What if, Well, what if I could get on national television? Lo and behold, 2 weeks to the day, I got a letter back and it said, Mr. Rich, thanks for your letter. You wrote the wrong company.
No.
Gillette makes that and here's their address, or Schick makes that and here's their address. So I learned quickly, but I had that desire. By failing, I won because I thought I want to be on national television. So a few years later, that small town that I grew up called and said, hey, we're going to have a centennial. We don't know whether 100 years, but we'd like to have you help us with publicity. So I sat down and wrote my first press release, but I talked to him and I said, we got to do something, make it unique. We decided to adopt someone, a famous celebrity. We only had 50 people in the town of Cooper, Iowa. Let's adopt someone. And I took the chance. I wrote it up. I hit a mimeograph and I hit it too hard and it printed out 44. So I had to go to the next town over and find a library. And I sent them all out I thought, well, Miami Herald, London type. I failed 43 times. I failed again. Only one did I get a response. And it was for a guy named Bruce Canner with United Press International, UPI. I had no idea who it was. He said, hey, I like this. We'll put it on the national wires. Well, when it went on the national wires, hit the Carson show. And within 4 weeks, we were talking about uplinking live from Cooper, Iowa. First time they'd ever done it. They guaranteed us front cover of Time, Newsweek. And everything was great, but they decided they couldn't get all the technical things done. So they put us together and told us that they're going to bring us to LA. So we got to be on Johnny Carson, 20 million homes. And lo and behold, my career shot up. But it wasn't the Carson show that made my career. It was the idea that we could go live via satellite from Iowa, because remember back to cable television, we were doing these free previews where you'd see HBO. Hey, Marge, they're showing free HBO. And then people would subscribe. And I thought, well, how could I do that? I'm traveling all of our different towns, Wilmington, Delaware, Dallas, Texas. Why couldn't I just do it via satellite? So I called HBO. They said no. Called this next person, no. Ultimately, the head of HBO engineering said, yeah, when do you need it? And he sent out a satellite uplink, first time ever from our state. And we generated $15 million in business that weekend. Again, because I failed 43 of the 44 times. So lo and behold, at age 30, the Bass brothers took a run at our public stock, and we had to do a leverage buyout. And I had one of these leverage buyout deals. I had no idea what stock options or anything else, but I got a whole bunch of them. And I thought it's time to retire. They closed our corporate offices. They merged everything together. And so I started my own companies and started doing these HBO previews. What I learned in this to get to the $80 billion deal is that it's better to have tried and failed than to succeed at doing nothing. And
wow, that's so good. Wait, will you say that one more time? That is so brilliant. So
it's
brilliant.
better to have tried and failed than to succeed at doing nothing. So because we tried and failed a couple of times, it gave us ideas to move on. So all these ideas started hitting, and I took that same idea, the satellite uplink, and I made more money than ever as my own company doing it for HBO and ESPN. We did all the pay-per-view boxing, Disney World for the Disney Channel. We did all their free previews. And at 50, I just midlife crisis, decided I got to do something different. That's when I got the call from the current governor at the time and said, hey, they're going to close the zoo. Would you be interested in running a zoo? Grew up on a farm. I guess I could run a zoo. So I ran a zoo and turned it around from a $600,000 deficit to in the black, and then raise another 15 million. So it's going to be there forever. And I'll tell you a little bit about what that means in life and being able to give back to communities. And when we get, because our next step is the $80 billion. So at the end of that, I got a call from the current governor who said, hey, the lottery director is going to, would you be interested in running the lottery for the state? Well, it's 100 and what is it? I think it was about $3.5 million that I was bringing in for the zoo. This was 350 million. I'll try it. So we were running it, and you can tell I love talking. I like marketing. I like sales. And we got into the sales, and it was really easy because it was state run. So you can do about anything and improve it, if you're running something that the state had. And all of a sudden, about a year and a half in, somebody walks in and says, we have a winner of a minor. It's like Powerball, only it's a smaller group of states that put this together called Hot Lotto. And so the person had won. Nobody came in, and we went out, started looking. No one came in, and you have 12 months to claim it. And within an hour and a half from it to expire, someone walks in with a ticket and says, I have the winner. Ding, 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 something screwy. So we started a full investigation. It took almost 3 years to say, this just doesn't feel right. We said, we're not going to pay it, first off, because if you pay it, they're going to take the money. You'll never see them again. They were going to sue us, all that. And then we must have scared them, because we really knew something was screwy. And we started looking around and doing it. We didn't get couldn't find anything we had a 4-year statute of limitations to find the winner. And 1 week before that statute of limitations ran out, we filed charges against an internal, a vendor of our lottery, who was the guy in charge of what they call it multi-state lottery. He was in the main office that takes all this Powerball and all this money in and then sends it back out. And he decided this particular game, he said, we should do this by a computer rather than doing the balls and all the security features we have with the Powerball. And he just happened to write the code, compile the code. And we said, he had to do this because the person that won it, that tried to claim it, was one of his friends that we figured out from 2 lawyers, one in New York, one in Quebec City. And we found out later that when they claimed it as the trust, the Quebec City person was the trustee of the one that the New York lawyer tried to have. And so basically the DCI got in it. We had to kind of back out as the lottery and let them do it. But they went ahead and decided to go out and talk to the guy in New York, lawyer in New York, and the lawyer up there. And you get that old, which I never want to be asked. You may have been asked this before, or you probably asked it. Do you want to be the witness or you want to be the defendant? They both decided to be the defendant or the witness. And they said, we got it from a guy in Houston, Texas. And ultimately, we found out that this guy was best friends with this programmer at the lottery. It took us almost 4 years to put that all together and do all the scientific things to make it work. And so we realized that it took a lottery ticket, 2 hot dogs, and Bigfoot. Now, how did it take 2 hot dogs and Bigfoot? Well, this was all just an Iowa lottery. And this is where ethics really came in, because the other lotteries were saying, hey, look, you're getting a lot of publicity. You're ruining, you could hurt sales here. If you're wrong, this guy didn't do it. You're gambling with our $80 billion business. $80 billion, think about that. That's more than all the sports tickets sold, all the music tickets sold, and the movie tickets sold combined. It's a lot of money that lotteries sell every year. And so I started feeling this pressure saying, just drop it. I mean, who's it going to hurt if we just don't pay it? They've turned it back in. They didn't claim it. So just forget about it. But, goes back to government. My governor and I talked, and I said, I want to go after it because I want the games for and on. He said, well, that's what I want too. So you can spend any money you want. So ultimately we spent about $600,000. We did all of this, and we found the guy that was the employee that did it, charged him, and he was found guilty. But in the sentencing, he decided to have his brother come up and testify for him. And his brother said, that can't be my brother. He don't eat hot dogs. That guy bought 2 hot dogs in that store. And lo and behold, the AP, because everybody's head kind of went, because the guy that he was pointing to, the employee, weighed about, I don't know, 300-400 pounds. And everybody thought he doesn't like hot dogs. And that's what the AP reporter reported. It went down to his brothers. And all of a sudden, FBI agents started saying, well, wait a minute, we investigated that guy for money laundering. And he said that he won a lottery in Colorado. Well, when it was all said and done, we went nationwide. We realized this guy had programmed up to 50 computers. He had them in states, so they were doing the local state lotteries in addition to this one national small big jackpot deal. And we busted him. And the feeling was pretty cool when it was all said and done. But that's what it was. How a lottery ticket, 2 hot dogs. Oh, and the brother loved to hunt Bigfoot. And because he hunted Bigfoot, he used the people that he had claiming his tickets were Bigfoot hunters, that it all came together. So it was a screwy story, made national news, and been 2 or 3 documentaries. Another one's being probably produced right now.
Man, that is incredible. And so if we dig into little pieces of that now, take the story aside, we had a really smart criminal, and he had a couple of accomplices. They figured out some real in-depth way to do this. It took you guys years to break through it. There had to be lessons for you, I would imagine, because you were already successful through all this. And I would love to kind of jump into somewhat your entrepreneurial journey, because that in itself is a fascinating story of all the things that you've already shared. But I would like to know, from your perspective, is already having what most people would have thought as success in your life, now you come up against this. Was the thing that kept you going the thought of saying, man, I'm learning these kind of lessons from this ethics side that are going to drive me to make this thing finish? Is that where it came from?
Yeah. And you think about lotteries, they're appointed by the governor. So everything's very political. Most of them, you have about 1.5 years in any office. Most lottery directors do. So everybody is afraid about getting fired. And because I'd had the success before, I didn't care if I got fired. If I didn't want to walk away and have people say that I did not pursue something that I knew was wrong. And that's a big lesson for government officials, because it was a lot easier just to shut my mouth and pay the thing and forget about it and not do much. So the lesson I learned that I do a lot of speeches to banks and schools. You've got small school or someone where the person who is the business manager writes the checks and writes the POs, you're pretty ripe for fraud. You want to have checks and balances. And the National Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, they had a triangle that I found in the middle of all this that I thought was really good. Number 1, 3 things that you'll have people stealing from you. Number 1, financial need. Now, everybody needs more money, but what happens is you usually get somebody who has a little bit of authority in writing the checks or whatever, that maybe has a gambling problem, drug problem. Divorce is a big one. Kids trying to go to college, you don't have the money for it. So now you've got a need where you really have a desire, because everybody could steal some things, but you got to have that financial need first that drives you over the edge. Then you have to have the opportunity. Now, in that school district or all of the different things you see, the financial opportunity is you wrote the check and you wrote the PO because the superintendent was too lazy to want to sign the checks, right? So you have all the controls, you have the opportunity. But the third one is the toughest one as a manager to really solve, and that is rationale. What point does the devil say, and this is exactly what Eddie, this guy, said when we did the proffer at the end. He said, I looked around and they worked me too hard, and these guys were making, Susie was making more money than I was, and I worked harder than she does. So I deserved it. And that hearing that I deserved, when you hear fraud in organizations. So it all of a sudden went from very, very happy sales, marketing, to becoming very serious. And I learned to kind of keep my mouth shut and let the police do their own work. And when it gets to the court system, get out of the way. And I learned a lot of respect for the judicial system, to say, anytime I got asked by the press, because you can tell I kind of like the press. So I use that as our way to find out who did it, one. And secondly, when they asked, to say, you know what? Our job was to present the evidence, and I believe in the judicial system do that, because you can always appeal. So by using that, we look sincere, and they knew that it wasn't us that was doing that. So those are some lessons I learned, and I believed in it. When it was all done, first question was, well, did he get enough time? Did he get enough time? Again, I would say, I have to believe in the judicial system, and that's what came out. He's going to have a chance to appeal, but we've got a great system here, and that's why I live in the United States of America.
Wow. So you then got into that side of things. And did you ever expect that? Like, did you ask yourself, how did I get here? I was the fun marketing, making things happen, doing all the intros guy, and now I'm in all this seriousness. Did that challenge you, like your persona at all, of being like, ooh, I'm not enjoying this so much? Or did you thrive on that?
I thrived on the media once I realized every time we got on TV, we sold more lottery tickets. And you know what the lesson was when it's all said and done? Did we gamble with the $80 billion industry? Last year was $110 billion. So most people who gamble, you don't know if you're playing cards in Malta on poker online. You don't know who's over there. They're probably taking your money. But when they heard that each lottery is run by their state, and you can go to the governor and say, I think something's wrong, or go to the lottery director, most people believed heavier that the lottery was fair and honest when it was all said and done. So yeah, going from the marketing to the seriousness, and at one point I'm starting to think, as we started seeing all the other states, and there was a corporation, they put part of it in Las Vegas. What if I get up and I have a horse head in my bed? I mean, it got a little freaky. And now we're in doing this prosecution, we're putting somebody's life in prison. But on the other side, probably 4 or 5 people got fired out of this deal. There was a lot of heartache. I lost a lot of friends who wanted me not to do anything. I got some praise from others. I'm sure I may have lost some awards or whatever that you get when you go up through the ranks in an organization. But I can sleep at night.
No doubt. And what about do you have any thoughts now about the lottery? If you were going through the thing now, would you be like, yeah, now that this has come clean, I would buy a lottery ticket? Or do you think like, hey, there's too much potential corruption in here after having been on the inside, that there's always a new mob boss, there's always a new drug dealer, there's always a new guy playing a game on the street? So presumably someone's trying to do this again, if nothing else, to say, ooh, I learned something from that last chucklehead that failed.
Well, everything where there is fraud, there is money. And the lottery, as I mentioned, is 80 billion, now $110 billion. If there's money, somebody's trying to figure out how to do that. I really have a strong belief in the checks and balances that we put in place afterwards, so no one can do what he did in that computer. The Powerball game, which has 7 or 8 different checks and balances. I mean, it's really sophisticated. Now, will it happen again? Well, there was a fraud not long ago. I mean, there's been frauds in the lottery business before. I can think of 4 or 5. One like in Pennsylvania, where they put paint in the ping pong balls. They weight down certain ones, then bet all the other ones. Or the one in Milan, where they heated or cooled or shaved off, and then had their kids reach in a blindfold, and they get all the hot ones, those sort of things. But if you add them all up, it's like, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 out of the billions and billions of draws that happened every day in the world. I feel very comfortable. It's as safe as it can be. And every day there are people who are watching and trying to watch for things that are just like that. So, and I can play now. And just so you
Okay.
know how safe it is, I've been playing now for 3 years since all of this has happened, and I retired and started on the road telling this story. I've won all of $22.
But you're a supporter for state wildlife and roads and all the other schools and all
That's
the
the
cool
theory.
stuff, right?
Yeah, people say, well, tell me how to win. Well, the lottery, 70% is paid back. It's all set up statistically, so about 70% is paid out in prizes. So if you bet $100, you're only going to win $70, on average. Now, if you get lucky, you're going to win more. And the worst odds are the big lotto jackpots because it's designed to take the majority. You only get 50% payout. 50% of the money is put right back into prizes to get the jackpot really big. And some people like to dream like that. But if you want to win, I tell everybody go in and take the money you have. You got a $20 bill, divide whatever you have by divide it by 10. And that's the amount you should be spending on a single lottery ticket. $20, $2. Buy 10 tickets all off the same roll in the same way, because most lottery games are designed that every fourth or fifth ticket is going to win something. Now, you can do that 100 times. And most of the time, if you bet $20, you're going to probably win about $6, $7, $8, because the rest of it has to get to the big jackpots. And if you get real lucky, you might win the big one. But most people take that big one, turn right around and play it again. So I'm a believer in don't play above your head, just play with it. Take a little money, go in and spend, just like if you're playing blackjack, bet it. If you lose it, walk away, and you've had great entertainment fun. But don't reach into your pocket and keep playing.
I love that. So let's now visit the zoo side of things, because that's a whole different animal. Like, did you go into the zoo for the challenge, or did you go into the zoo because you have a special love for animals, or you had a special love for the people or the community if they lost the zoo? What was your impetus? And then what did you tell us more about the zoo project
Sure.
that you reinvigorated?
Why did I go into the zoo? I think that when you've had success, it could be like cocaine, although I've never done cocaine. Once you've had success, you want to do it again. And when you've gone through what happened in the cable business and how fast it grew, and anything we touched seemed to turn to gold, take that to my own company, which then I got to keep everything that turned to gold. It just kept going and going. But I wanted to get off the road. I call it midlife crisis. Family, I've had the money I thought I'd ever make, more than my dad ever had. So I thought and then you realize you're going to live for 40 years. You got to keep making a little bit. And I got the call. And I think that I wanted the challenge because it was as low as it probably could get, because they were just going to close it. And they said, would you help? So walk in and you use the same techniques. I think if they had somebody who had been in a zoo somewhere, it probably would be failed today, because it's kind of like probably people are yelling about the current new president and Musk and everybody just going nuts. I decided we can't, it's going to go down if we just don't do something really crazy. And so they kept saying, well, we need keepers say, we need $2 million. We need a new exhibit. And I said, well, you don't have $2 million. So we've got to come up with something else. We knew we had all kids 2 to 12. So I thought, well, what do we have that's free that would bring more kids in? And we brainstormed. This is part of the brainstorming that I really enjoyed and learned how to do, is to get everybody top to bottom to say, any idea is a good idea. And I said, what do we have that's free? And someone said, well, we got poop. So I said, well, great idea. Let's get poop of each animal and put it on display so the kids come in and say, hey, that's what giraffe poop looks like. They were going home telling their friends and laughing and screaming and all that. And all of a sudden our numbers went up and up. I raised the price from, I think it was $4, which is what cities do. Oh, we can't charge any more than that. Kids can't afford it, up to $9.95. And then I gave out tons of free tickets, knowing everybody from out of the city who'd gone to the big zoos will pay $25, $30. And that all of a sudden raised it up. We said, well, okay, we've worked our market on kids now. What could we do for young adults? Because none of them are coming in. You go to a museum when you are a kid, when you take your kid, and when you take your grandkid, and then no more. So we need something that young adults would come to. And we brainstormed and we looked around the young adults. What do you enjoy? I like to have a beer. Booze. Yeah. So we started something called Zoo Brew. We brought in a band. We opened the zoo at night and had drinks. And I think they do $250,000 just in alcohol sales now down at the zoo. And we started doing all these kind of crazy, completely non-animal related, But what happened was when we made money, we could give some of that money back to the zookeepers. We take 10, 20%. And that's a big lesson I learned. Once you make money, you don't just blow all your money right away. You take part of your money and give back to that. And they were then able to take care of the animal. Now they're happy. More people are coming in. Everybody's happy. And all of a sudden our donors came out of the woodwork because they said, we really like what you're doing. We raised 15 million in endowment so that interest could be paid forever.
That's something else. Are you still connected to that zoo?
Yeah, I'm an honorary board member, but I'm also one that when you're a manager, you're even the lottery. I left and I left my number and that and said, you need me, call me. They called me very little, and so did the zoo, because I want them to do the same thing. Everybody, when you go into a business, you want to build that next block, because my expertise was in marketing and sales, and the person behind me was straight fundraising to be able to expand the zoo. And now the person is animal care. And so you have all of these different people that have added a block, which really builds a really solid foundation for the whole institution.
So here's a question totally off topic. You have talked about win after win after win throughout your life. I would like to hear about what are one or at least one of the biggest losses that you experienced, because I want people on here to, like, I've been so blessed in my life, and man, I've taken some shots too, and I think I've learned more from that, and I love to remember the wins, but man, some of those painful losses were incremental or instrumental in my growth. Is there anything that you can share with us that really you had to overcome that was tough?
I'll blow through them quick. First one was high school. I flipped the bird in the band picture. I was on the end. I got caught. And I got grounded. They wanted to kick me out of a senior class president, kick me out of all this stuff. And the band instructor came to me and he said, hey, look, you screwed up. Just take your lump and go. That was one great lesson. And to this day, I still hate the superintendent or the principal who wanted to kick me out of everything, but I really admired the guy to say, don't, just take your lump and move on, to pay your price. The razor deal was probably the next big one. And the Carson show was definitely a failure. But when I came out of working for a big corporation, we were a New York Stock Exchange company. I was a marketer. I was sales, all the things that go along with that, programming. I started my own company, and I had no idea that I needed to pay for insurance, overhead, all these things, of how much cash flow you really need to make it work. And once I started, I got lucky, and within a week, I had a $500,000 project that came through, and immediately cash flowed my company for 10 years because I tried to have very low overhead and costs in doing that. So I realized in that when I made money, I tried to always think about a small business and think about Procter & Gamble and the research and development. They have a research and development. Why shouldn't small companies? Most brand new companies, entrepreneurs, will stick all their money in and then they cash flow out. They don't put enough in there, realizing all these costs they didn't realize because they have a great idea. They got a great product, but they didn't realize all of that. And I took 10% of all the profits that I made from there on out, stuck it off the side, and I started doing really dumb, fun things to just see if I couldn't hit it again, because I love the chase. The chase is fun. Having the success in any particular project wasn't the excitement. It was going after the chase each time. So we then bought a radio station. Never bought built a radio station for, sold that, doubled our money. Took 10%, and I started something called Soccer Slam, full contact indoor soccer, just like WWE. And it absolutely failed because all the soccer, we got it on Fox Sports World, but all the soccer purists thought this is stupid. And all the college kids said, this is the greatest thing we ever had. But we were doing so much work for HBO, we kind of dropped it. Well, 20 years later, and this is the moral of the story, 20 years later, I get a call. Some guy said, hey, somebody just told me about this thing on the internet about Soccer Slam. Well, I want to do a story, and did a 20-page internet story. And we immediately got a call to do an internet or to do an autobiography of something called Soccer Slam. And it was so good, and it went onto the Hearst. It's on the Hearst streaming service right now, the making of Soccer Slam, that now we're looking at doing it like the Savannah Bananas have done something like that for baseball, and we're kind of seeing if that works. But and I have $1 million idea before we get cut off I want to tell you about that anybody can steal today, because I love giving ideas. The concept of taking a bushel basket and having 100 ideas and then fostering the best to the top and having your team work on them is really exciting. But the moral there is, don't spend all your money when you do that. Spend just a portion.
Boy, that's great advice in life too, right? Whether it's in your business or in your life, take some. I used to tell my kids all the time, save some, spend some, give some to God in whatever form that is, right? To the people on the corner, to your church, to your whatever. And you're saying the same thing in business. And I have a question for you. I was called by someone very dear to me yesterday. She called me yesterday and we were just talking about this and that. And she goes, "Hey, I want to ask your opinion about something." She goes, "I have an opportunity to buy into a new business, or not a new business, ongoing business, a pizza joint that such and such has asked me to be a partner," and on and on. And the family has owned it for 5 years and it blah, blah, blah. Right. So we're kind of going through the stuff. And I said, why do you want to do this? What is your hope of doing this? And she said, "Well, it's kind of because I could learn some things from about business and I could learn this and I could learn that." And I said, "Well, I'll tell you what." I said, "How much is the total project?" And she says 750 grand, because she's buying it would be the pizza place and it would be the building that it's in, because the owner owns both and wants to wrap it all up in one deal. And I said, "Okay, well, let me just share with you my thought on this after having owned several practices and done this and whatever. If you buy that business in order to learn a few things, that's an expensive lesson, as opposed to if you want to start a small thing and then learn the same lessons for a lot less, that's something." But I said, if you decide to do this, you'd better decide that this is going to be your child, that you're
Yep.
going to be willing to spend 50, 60, 80 hours a week, whatever it takes to nurture and raise and grow this creature. And it's a consumable product in food that goes bad if you don't sell it. So I said, you just got to make sure your why is big enough. And it's not something that you are passionate about on the first place. So my question to you through all that is, because you've done so many things, and like you said, the radio station, you didn't know anything about radio stations. How do you feel about, especially as maybe a rookie entrepreneur, as opposed to a serial one, of really trying to stay into something that you're passionate about and either you know a lot about or that you can't wait to dig in and learn about?
Um, I think once you've made it, you don't bet the whole farm again. But I tell a lot of college kids that want to be entrepreneurs. I said, go to work at a company you admire. McDonald's has made a lot of money. They've been around forever. Go to work at McDonald's. Sounds crazy, doesn't it? But you're going to learn about cash flow. You're going to learn about how their customer service are trained, all of the different elements that you can take to the next step. So go to a company that you can learn things in the first few years, and then at night start your business. And when you can cash flow it enough to quit, you've already learned that extra. The other is initially you won't have the money to pay a board. Get an advisory board, friends you need an accountant. You need things that you aren't smart. You don't want to do. I just hate accounting and the details of all the things that go with that. No, that's not me. So you get a group around you that will help you. And when you do make money, you compensate them. You hire them to be your accountant and lawyer and all of the things that you have. And the final thing, of all the things that I failed in that I wish I could learn, I learned from Damon John. I'm trying to learn all the time. And Damon John was on a podcast like this with me recently. And we were getting ready. I was chatting with him and he was writing some stuff down. I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, I'm making my list. I'm going to do it tonight before I go to bed. I change it. And then in the morning." I said, "Really? You have that many $1 million ideas?" He said, "No, no, 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 no." He said, "I've made the money. Here's what I learned is that I write down every day items that I want to do for myself first thing in the morning. So when I wake up tomorrow, I'm going to write down, I'm going to have cinnamon toast because I haven't had that for almost a year. And I do things that make me happy because I walk out the door to help other people make them happy because I'm in a great mood. Because most people wake up, they're dour, geez, I've got to get this thing done. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. Which is another lesson that Life is Good t-shirt people, I went to one of their talks and they were talking about how everybody's coming and say, "Yeah, meetings, I have to go to this meeting today or have to," and they changed the word. Anybody's can't use "I have to" anymore. I get to. So change that. And all of a sudden you start thinking, well, yeah, I do get to go this. I've got a good job. I get to go there. Or I get to be part of this. Not everybody gets to come into this management meeting and make a decision. So those are some things that I think help people get in the mood. You've got to be in the right spirit to get that. And I have certain superstitions that I do that mean nothing except that I know I'm going to have a great pitch when I go to McDonald's and have a cheeseburger and a fry before I go in for a pitch, because I did that and had a $500,000 sale the first time I went in. So I'm never going to break that deal.
That's a good one. What are some of your others, if you would share with us, like success rituals or things like that? Like for me, I know that every morning it is the same thing for me, right? I get up, I go through my process. I get my mind right. Then I get my body right through a workout. Then I get my morning sun by walking the dog and I'm with my wife. And then I'm ready for my day to start. That's just what I have to do to set myself
That's right.
right. Do you have certain habits or traditions or things that you say, hey,
I have
this
certain
is what helps me?
clothes. In one of my books, I mentioned that one of the things I do, it's kind of weird. I buy a group. Remember my Gillette story? I have five. You get five razors in a deal. I only use the second one because if I use any of the other five, I have bad days. So when I take a new one, I use one and then I give the others away. Now that's kind of a ritual. The other is I suggest to everybody when you go to any meeting, you raise your hand. If someone says the toilet's broke, janitor's gone, be the first to raise your hand. You're always going to get noticed, no doubt about it. I think that would be one. And the final one we came up with at the lottery, again, 30 years. I didn't do it when I was 20, but and one of the ideas from experience is that I went in and you're the boss, and federal state employees are all kind of, what do we do? And I'd say, hey, let's paint the wall green, let's put purple over here. We need that chair, let's do this, let's do that. And they absolutely melted down. And they came in and somebody raised their hand, one of the VPs, and said, hey, we can't do this. And I said, what do you mean? We can't get all this stuff done. I said, what do you mean? Well, you were saying you want blah, blah, blah. And I said, no. They were just ideas. And we realized that a big bushel basket, when you go out to Napa, they don't just pick everything out of their own backyard. They go out and find this area where there's better minerals and weather and all that sort of thing. And they get 100 different grapes and they pick which one they think is going to make it that particular year. And that's what they use. So let's just get our own little mental basket and let's just throw all the ideas we can. So when we brainstorm, every idea is a good idea. There's no judgment. You put them all in the big basket. And then we handed that back out to everybody. So the lawyer and the accountant who used to say, yeah, you can't afford that, or we're going to get sued, would give their crazy ideas. And then if everybody really liked it, then the sales guy could say, well, that might cost us too much, or I really like that idea. But when you come out with the top three ideas, everybody's in agreement. You can go out and everybody's on the team to go get it done. So we use the word consider or throw away, COT, on emails. So if you get an email that says COT, that means if you're busy, just throw it away. You don't have to read it. And the same with me. And so all of a sudden we had all these ideas going up and down, including from the front desk and everywhere else, because in the past they'd stick it in a suggestion box and they would, nobody'd ever do it. Then they'd be bitching in the break room saying, yeah, that management, they never listened to me. So I couldn't believe how much more positive everything became once we did that.
Consider or throw away. That's a
Can
beautiful
you
concept.
tell I've taken you about 78 different ways, but I love just keep giving ideas as you do it, because that's how people do. That's how I got this $1 million idea I get to give you at the end.
So I want one more question, and then I want to get to that $1 million deal. Here's my question for you. Everything that you've shared is all about ideas, creativity, teamwork, going through adversity, overcoming the failure, looking to be ethical. All of those things are incredible characteristics. Where does mentorship and leadership fall in how you view literally making the most of someone's life?
Empowerment, I would say, encouragement, empowerment. From that band director that encouraged me to just forget about, you made a mistake, move on, to my dad. But every time I came up with a crazy idea, you're on the farm, something breaks down, you got to be creative to get it fixed. Everybody gave me the empowerment to make it better. And I would say that's kind of that's probably the biggest one. I had a marketing manager. When I walked in, this marketing manager was really a hotshot that we hired from the outside, came in. And, you could tell that, like me, they kind of want to do their own thing. They didn't want me involved, but yet you got to kind of keep your eyes on it. So I basically met and said, hey, look, here's our budget. Here's your budget. Let's keep in touch. But as long as you're ahead of that number right there, I'm not coming to any of your meetings. And you know what? In 10 years, I never had to go to a meeting, because she did not want me to come in and put my finger in it. And so empowering someone is a great trait, to allow them that you have, one, faith in them, that gives them confidence, and two, that they aren't afraid to try something, even with failure, and be rewarded, because they know in the big hole, they're going to be successful.
Man, well, this has been such a treasure trove of ideas for me. I'm wound up. I feel bad for Gabe and Alexis. They're going to have to hear about this from me now. We're going to talk about all this, but thank you so much for coming on. And I need to ask you, Terry, what is that million dollar idea that one of our audience, our listeners, our viewers are going to take and change their lives?
Well, you remember the Powerball and Mega Millions. Powerball was run by small states, Mega Millions, the big states. They were essentially the same. But in the 2008 and 9, during the economy collapse, we kept looking and say, gosh, wish we could sell your product. You could sell ours. So we cross sold that product. So they said, okay, give us some ideas for marketing this cross sale. So when we launch Mega Millions in a Powerball state, how do we do it? So I got in my car and I'm driving home and I look up. Oh my God, there was a crescent moon, just where you can, looks like a thumbnail. We could own the moon. We've got to find a spotlight or a laser to put the jackpot amount on the moon. No one has done that yet. There's nothing on the moon. So I called my university to the physicist up there and said, hey, blah, blah, hung up on me. They thought I was some kook. So I finally got a hold of the competitor at University of Iowa, astrophysicist. And he said, well, the signal is going to get busted up through the atmosphere. So it probably wouldn't work. But if you could figure out a way to get above the atmosphere, you might have a shot at it. You'd have to have some pretty good power. We got to get a hold of Elon Musk. He's got to go at all those satellites out there. If we could get now up there, we can own the moon as a billboard.
That is ridiculously cool. Hey, we're only one contact away. What do they say? We're all 6 levels from Scooby-Doo or something like that. So one of us, we're 6 levels away from Elon Musk. We're going to make that happen. So
we got to make it happen.
Hey, I will tell you, Terry, this has been so fun and so amazing. Is there everything that you've shared, is there one piece of advice that you've given or that you've learned or received along the way that has been paramount in making your life feeling basically the foundation for which you apply the rest of it that you haven't shared with us already?
Well, I think it's better to try and fail than to succeed at doing nothing, but it is a big one in that, I guess that's, you got to do it. You got to take the step, daring to dream first, then daring to act. And when I got all done, I thought I'm going to retire after the lottery. And what do? I found the absolute best retirement gig in the world, and that's public speaking. I was amazed when I was North American Lottery president. We were paying $40,000, $50,000 a speech for people to speak at our conference. And I said, God, I can do that. So over the early years, I started developing a speech content on creativity and one on this fraud deal once it happened. And so I've been doing that. I've traveled the world. They pay you to go over. They give you a nice place. I take some of that money and just look around Germany or Italy or wherever the heck I'm at. And then I just come home and I live my little life in Iowa. And it's on my own time when I want to do it. And you just can't beat that for a retirement gig. So having self-control and direction is a big deal, and the confidence to try something.
I love that. And Terry, how would people get a hold of you if they want to learn more, if they want to have you come speak, if they want to basically connect with you? What's the best way for them to do that?
Both the books and all of my speeches, everything, contacts, it's pretty easy. Terry, Terry, speaks. I speak with an S.com, terryspeaks.com. You'll find everything there, but I'm not in it for trying to pitch these things for money. I'm in it because I really enjoy meeting people like you and listening to stories and telling a story of a fun life.
Mr. Terry Rich, this is a fun life. You've made my day more rich from us being together. So
you didn't call me a son of a rich. That's the best.
Oh, no, I did not. That did not hit my brain, but I will remember it for our next conversation. How's that?
Sounds good.
Awesome. Terry, thank you for the time today. Continue to be well, continue to be blessed, and continue to make a difference. And
you too.
For those of you that are watching or listening, if this made a difference in your life or in your world, please share it. Make notifications, hit those bells, those hearts, those thumbs up. Give us all the engagement things, because it's through your validation of what we're doing that more people will get that momentum, like Terry talked about in how he was doing what he did. We want to spread the word about what we're doing. And on that note, if there's something that you'd like to see or hear about, a guest, a topic, reach out to me. My email is jim@ramoslaw.com, and I will absolutely do everything I can to get that person on the show. But in the meantime, like Terry, you go out there and you continue to make a difference.